Shabbat Shalom. It's good to be home, at least in this home. After 3 weeks of mourning from the 17th of Tammuz to Tisha B'Av, known as Ben HaMitzarim, the narrow straits, we arrive at the Shabbat Nahamu, the Shabbat of Comfort, longing to be comforted. Tomorrow morning we will hear those powerful words of Yeshayahu, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, Yomar Elohechem. Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. After 3 weeks of haftarot filled with rebuke and visions of destruction, this Shabbat is meant to offer love and hope and a path toward restoration. Yeshayahu continues, but they who trust in God shall renew their strength. As eagles grow new plumes, they shall run and not grow weary. They shall march and not grow faint. Notice what Yeshayahu does not promise. He does not promise that danger will disappear. He does not promise that suffering is over. He promises renewed strength. Perhaps that's what comfort really is. Not the absence of fear, but the courage to keep walking through it. Because tonight, many of us do not feel comforted. We feel unsettled. We feel weary, and we feel afraid. In our very own neighborhood, just a couple blocks from here, on the afternoon of Tisha B'Av, a visibly Jewish man who had just left praying at the Jewish Center and an Asian man were both stabbed. Though the full investigation is still unfolding and we don't know the attacker's motives or the state of his mental health, the reported words of the attacker, together with the alarming rise in anti-Semitism in our city and throughout our country, give us real pause. Many of us are asking whether our city is becoming less safe for Jews. We worry for ourselves, for our children, and for all those who are targets of anti-Semitic and hate crimes. We all, I know, are praying for the healing of Moshe Yitzchak Grunhaus and Chak Sung, who were the victims of this attack. I flew home Wednesday morning after spending 3 weeks in Israel studying at the Hartman Institute as part of a fellowship I have. I have a deep love for the land and the people of Israel. I have spent years of my life studying, living, and visiting friends there. I have led countless BJ groups on Israel trips. And because I love Israel, and because we at BJ love Israel, I am also deeply critical of the Netanyahu government, of the occupation, and of the dehumanization of Palestinians that has become increasingly normalized in Israeli discourse, particularly in the years since the horrors of October 7th. Over these 3 weeks, I studied texts about faith and humanity with a group of rabbis, and I met with Israeli Jews and Palestinians who are struggling to build a different story, to imagine what is possible, and to see the humanity of the other as a religious obligation. And for all my criticism of Netanyahu and the policies of the Israeli government, and I know our team here, Alex and Becca and Ari, feel similarly, the rhetoric of Mayor Mamdani has too often been inflammatory, disproportionate, and singularly focused on Israel. Criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic by definition. But when the mayor of the city with the largest Jewish population in America consistently singles out the Jewish state with such derision, it is difficult not to worry about the consequences. At a moment of rising Semitism, such rhetoric risks deepening hostility towards Jews, even if that is not his intent. In this week's parasha, Moshe tells the people how he pleaded with God for one final chance to enter the promised land. Ve'etchanan el Adonai be'etahi lemor. I pleaded with God at that time, saying, let me, I pray, cross over and behold the good land beyond the Yarden, the hill country and the Lebanon. Moshe's longing is profound. After 40 years of leading the people through the wilderness, he asks only to enter the land he has devoted his life to reaching. God has already decreed that he will not enter, and yet Moshe never gives up. He prays one more time. Ve'etchanan, he reports. He pleads. Rashi understands Moshe's prayer as pure supplication. He knows he has exhausted every claim of merit. He asks only for grace. Rashi describes it as a gift that would just be given out of God's love. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch notices something different. Earlier in Devarim, Moshe places responsibility on the people for his inability to enter the land because the spies had the bad report. Here, however, in this moment in Ve'etchanan, he turns inward, and his prayer becomes an act of humility. He stands before God without accusation or blame, but in contrition. The Torah Ha'aroch imagines yet another transformation of Moshe. Once Moshe accepts God's decree that he is not to enter the land, his prayer changes. It is not for himself. If he cannot lead the people into the promised land, then he prays that Yehoshua will have the strength to do so. His concern shifts from his own destiny to the future of the people. There is something deeply moving about Moshe's final prayer that he reports about in this week's parasha. It articulates his never stopping, his longing. He never stops hoping. He never stops praying. He is relentless, and God has had it with him, by the way. God says, Rav lachem, you are too much for me, enough already. Even when he knows the answer will be no. Perhaps that is because prayer does not always change God's mind. Prayer changes us. Prayer invites us to examine ourselves honestly. It softens our certainty. It teaches humility. It reminds us that even when we cannot control the future, we can still choose who we will become in it. This week reminded us how much security matters. We need leaders who take seriously the responsibility to protect every New Yorker. We need institutions that safeguard our communities. We need vigilance in the face of hatred. Those things for sure matter. But Torah also reminds us that they are not enough. Walls can protect us. Police can protect us. Governments can protect us, and we need them to the best of their ability. But they cannot by themselves create the kind of world in which we are truly safe. Our deepest security will come when every human being is recognized as created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. It will come when Jews can walk through our city without fear. It will come when Palestinians are seen in their full humanity. It will come when Israeli Jews are seen in theirs. It will come when we refuse the temptation to reduce people to symbols or slogans or enemies. It will come when disagreement does not become dehumanization, when our safety does not depend only on higher walls, but on a deeper moral vision. That world may feel impossibly distant right now. It does, by the way, in Israel, feel impossibly distant. But so did the Promised Land for Moshe. And yet, he never stopped praying for it. That, I think, is Yeshayahu's comfort. Not that the journey is over, not that the dangers have disappeared, but that God renewed our strength for the journey ahead. Unlike Moshe, however, we do not pray alone. Moshe was often very much alone in his role. We have one another here in the sanctuary, on the live stream, in community. We gather to strengthen one another and to give chizuk, to remind one another that hope is sustained in community. That is what Shabbat Nahamu offers. Not an escape from reality, not permission to ignore our fears, but the strength to face them together. As we enter the Shabbat Nahamu, may God comfort all those who live in fear, heal those who have been wounded in body and spirit, strengthen those who labor for justice and peace, and grant us renewed strength to keep walking toward the world that still lies just beyond reach.